My name is Kendra Williams, and I'm about to tell you the story of how my Aunt Lorraine turned my elegant baby shower into what can only be described as the Battle of Blair Creek. And yes, it all started over potato salad. Not world peace, not family honor, not even money or property disputes like normal families. Potato salad. Now, before you judge me for even letting Aunt Lorraine through the door, you need to understand something fundamental about Black family dynamics. You can't just uninvite people because they're difficult. That's not how we operate. That's not how any of this works. If Aunt Lorraine didn't get an invitation, my mama would never speak to me again. My grandmother would rise from her grave just to give me a thorough lecture about respecting your elders, and I'd probably get written out of somebody's will, maybe multiple wills. Family is family, even when family is absolutely, completely, undeniably losing their entire mind. I should have seen it coming, though. The warning signs were all there, flashing like neon lights on a Saturday night in downtown Atlanta. Big, bright, impossible to miss if you were paying attention. But I wasn't paying attention because I was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, swollen in places I didn't know could swell, and just trying to get through each day without crying over a commercial or eating an entire box of cereal in one sitting. It started 3 weeks before the baby shower when I made the catastrophic mistake of posting the menu on the family group chat. You know the one. Every Black family has one. That chaotic digital space where your cousin posts Bible verses at 6 in the morning like she's trying to save souls before breakfast. Your uncle shares conspiracy theories about the government putting chemicals in the water. Somebody's always asking for prayer without explaining what's wrong. And somehow, every single conversation, no matter how it starts, turns into a heated debate about who makes the best collard greens, sweet potato pie, or macaroni and cheese. I typed out the menu with such innocent, naive optimism. Looking back, I can see how foolish I was, how unprepared for what was coming. The menu read finger sandwiches, fresh fruit display, mini quiches, spinach and artichoke dip with crackers, chocolate-covered strawberries, sparkling cider and lemonade, and yes, potato salad. My best friend Deshawn's mama, Mrs. Patricia Jenkins, had volunteered to make it. Mrs. Patricia's potato salad was legendary in Blair Creek and 3 surrounding counties. People talked about it at church in hushed, reverent tones. Folks would show up to events 2 hours early just to make sure they got a plate before it ran out. The deacons had been known to hide containers of it in the church kitchen for later. Pastor Williams once mentioned it in a sermon about abundance and blessings, which sparked a 15-minute tangent about whether food could be anointed. The consensus was yes, and Mrs. Patricia's potato salad was definitely anointed. Her secret was love, mustard, a little bit of sugar, perfectly cooked eggs with yolks that were creamy but not chalky, and according to whispers and speculation that bordered on urban legend, a splash of pickle juice that made everything come together like a gospel choir hitting the perfect note on Sunday morning. Some people swore she added a touch of celery seed. Others claimed there was a hint of paprika mixed into the dressing. A few folks at the senior center insisted she prayed over it before mixing, which is why it tasted like heaven. My phone started buzzing exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds after I posted that menu. I know the exact time because I was watching a baking show and had just started timing a cake in the oven when the notifications started rolling in like a tsunami. Aunt Lorraine, who's making the potato salad? The message appeared on my screen with a kind of ominous energy that should have come with a warning label and possibly a hazmat suit. Me, Mrs. Patricia. You remember Deshawn's mom? I added a smiley face emoji, like that would somehow soften whatever was coming. Spoiler alert, it did not. Aunt Lorraine, I don't know her. Yes, you do. She was at my graduation. She wore that purple dress and hat. She sat in the 3rd row. I was trying to be helpful, providing details, hoping recognition would dawn and this conversation would end peacefully. Aunt Lorraine? Never met her. But that's fine. I'll bring my potato salad too. Can't have too much potato salad. And there it was, the opening salvo. The first shot fired, the beginning of what would become a 3-week campaign of psychological warfare disguised as family meal planning. Now, let me paint you a comprehensive picture of Aunt Lorraine, because you need to understand exactly who we're dealing with here. She's 53 years old, stands about 5'2" in her church shoes, 5'4" if she's wearing the ones with the extra thick heel that she bought, specifically because she hates being the shortest person in family photos. She's never met a battle she didn't want to fight, a hill she didn't want to die on, or an opinion she didn't want to share loudly and repeatedly until everyone either agreed with her or pretended to agree just to make it stop. Her hair is always laid to perfection, usually in some variation of a shoulder-length style with enough hairspray to survive a Category 5 hurricane. Her nails are always done French tips, usually, occasionally with little designs for holidays. She favors pantsuits in bold colors that you can spot from 3 blocks away: hot pink, electric blue, sunshine yellow, colors that announce her presence before she even opens her mouth. And her opinion? Her opinion is always loud, always confident, and always delivered with the absolute certainty of someone who has never once questioned whether they might be wrong about something. She's the kind of woman who will tell a complete stranger in the grocery store that their outfit doesn't match, then act genuinely surprised and hurt when they get offended. She'll critique your cooking while eating it, suggest improvements to your home while she's a guest in it, and offer parenting advice despite never having had children of her own. She means well, I think, but meaning well doesn't stop you from starting fires everywhere you go. It just means you're confused about why everything is always burning. The thing about Aunt Lorraine's potato salad is that it's what polite people call an acquired taste. And by acquired taste, I mean nobody in the 40 years she's been making it has successfully acquired a taste for it. Not a single person. Not one. We've all tried. Lord knows we've tried. But some things are just beyond human capability, and enjoying Aunt Lorraine's potato salad is one of them. She uses too much mayonnaise, and I mean too much even by Southern standards, which is saying something. There's not enough seasoning, so it tastes bland despite all that mayo. The potatoes are sometimes undercooked, sometimes overcooked, never quite right. And then, for reasons that nobody understands and she refuses to explain, she adds raisins. Golden raisins specifically, which she insists are fancier than regular raisins. Raisins. In potato salad, like she's trying to bridge the gap between sides and dessert and ending up in some kind of culinary uncanny valley where nothing makes sense and everything tastes wrong. Every family gathering, without fail, she brings that bowl of confusion, sets it on the table with the pride of someone presenting a Michelin-starred dish, and then spends the entire event watching to see who takes some. She positions herself strategically so she has a clear line of sight to the food table. She tracks every person who walks by. She makes mental notes of who takes a scoop and who doesn't. And God help you if you don't take some, because she will remember. She keeps a mental list of everyone who has ever rejected her potato salad, and she will bring it up at Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, your wedding day, and possibly your funeral. She has the memory of an elephant and the grudge-holding capacity of someone who really should consider therapy. My cousin Jasmine once tried to sneak past the potato salad table at a 4th of July barbecue. She was 19 at the time, moving quick, eyes forward, trying to blend into a group of people. Aunt Lorraine spotted her from across the yard, through a crowd of at least 30 people, and called out, "Jasmine, honey, you forgot to get some potato salad." Jasmine froze like a deer in headlights, turned around, walked back, and took the smallest spoonful humanly possible while Aunt Lorraine watched with narrowed eyes and said, "That's all you want? That little bit?" It was like a hostage situation, but with mayonnaise and judgment. "Aunt Lorraine, we already have potato salad covered, but maybe you could bring those dinner rolls you make. Those are always so good." I thought this was a smooth redirect, a compliment sandwich. Acknowledge her desire to contribute, redirect to something she's actually good at, end with praise. This is a technique I learned in corporate training seminars. It works on difficult coworkers. It does not work on Aunt Lorraine. That was my first mistake. Never, under any circumstances, suggest to Aunt Lorraine that her potato salad isn't necessary. I might as well have told her that her entire existence was optional, and her presence at family gatherings was barely tolerated. Aunt Lorraine? My rolls? You want me to bring rolls when I make the best potato salad in this family? I stared at my phone in disbelief. The best potato salad in this family? We didn't even crack the top 10. We might not crack the top 50. There were church ladies making potato salad in 3 states who were better than us, and that was just counting the ones I knew personally. I didn't say that, Auntie. It's just that Mrs. Patricia already committed to making it, and I don't want to put you through any extra trouble. I was trying to be diplomatic, trying to smooth things over, trying to avoid whatever storm I could feel building on the horizon. Aunt Lorraine, well, I'm committed too. I'm bringing my potato salad, and we'll let people decide which one is better. And there it was. The challenge had been issued. The gauntlet had been thrown. In Aunt Lorraine's mind, this was no longer a baby shower celebrating the upcoming arrival of my first child. This was the Potato Salad Olympics, and she was going for gold, silver, bronze, and whatever 4th place gets, just to make sure she medaled. I screenshotted the conversation and sent it to Deshaun with the message, "We have a problem." Deshaun called immediately, his voice tight with concern. What did she say? She's bringing her potato salad. The one with the raisins? Is there another one? Lord, have mercy. Kendra, you know what this means. I'm hoping it means nothing. I'm hoping she brings it. People politely take some, and we all move on with our lives. Deshaun was silent for a long moment. Girl, how long have you known your aunt? My whole life. And in your whole life, has she ever brought her potato salad somewhere and let it be just a regular side dish? He had a point. Aunt Lorraine's potato salad was never just a side dish. It was a statement, a challenge, a test of loyalty. Bringing her potato salad to an event was like bringing a weapon to a peace negotiation. Technically allowed, but definitely changing the whole vibe. What do I do? I asked, feeling my 7 months pregnant emotions starting to bubble up. Nothing you can do now except pray and hide the serving spoons. My mama called me that night, her voice carrying that particular tone that Black mothers use when they're about to tell you something you don't want to hear but absolutely need to know. It's a specific frequency, this tone. Scientists probably can't measure it, but every Black child knows it instantly. It bypasses your ears and goes straight to the part of your brain that controls anxiety and regret. Kendra, baby, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I put down the ice cream I'd been eating straight from the container and sat up straighter on the couch. When Mama uses that voice, you pay attention. Yes, Mama? Your Aunt Lorraine is planning something. I know, Mama. She wants to bring potato salad. No, baby. You're not hearing me. She's not just bringing potato salad. She's bringing her A-game potato salad. She went to 3 different grocery stores today. 3. She bought a new bowl, not just any bowl, but one of those fancy glass ones with the lid and the serving spoon that matches. She bought special paprika for garnish. She's been on the phone with Aunt Cheryl, Cousin Denise, your Uncle Robert, and according to Aunt Cheryl, she's been talking to your grandmother's ghost apparently, getting recipe advice. Mama, Grandma's been gone for 5 years. I know what I said, Kendra. I know how it sounds. But Cheryl says Lorraine has been sitting at the kitchen table having full conversations with an empty chair, taking notes, and saying things like, "Yes, Mama, I remember," and "You're right, Mama, I should add more of that." I felt a chill run down my spine. That's concerning, on multiple levels. That's what I'm trying to tell you, baby. Your aunt is not in her right mind about this potato salad situation. She sees this as a competition, a battle, a war where only one potato salad can emerge victorious. But it's just food, Mama. It's just a side dish. My mama laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who has lived long enough to know that nothing in a black family is ever just anything. Baby girl, you have so much to learn. My husband, Jerome, walked into the kitchen right then, and I could see the concern on his face as he registered my expression. Jerome is one of those genuinely good men who tries his absolute best to stay out of family drama, but always somehow ends up right in the middle of it anyway. He's 6'3", works in IT at a major company downtown, makes good money, treats me like a queen, and has the kind of calm, steady disposition that makes you think nothing ever bothers him. He's the type of man who can watch a horror movie without flinching, handle a work crisis without breaking a sweat, and remain completely composed when the car breaks down on the highway. But even Jerome knew that when my mama called with that specific tone in her voice, trouble was coming like a freight train with no brakes. "What's wrong?" he asked, sitting down at the table with his plate of leftover wings from last night's dinner. "Aunt Lorraine is turning our baby shower into a potato salad competition." Jerome stopped mid-bite, his wings suspended in the air halfway to his mouth. He looked at me. He looked at the phone. He looked back at me. Then he carefully put the wing down on his plate and wiped his hands with a napkin. "The one with the raisins?" "Yes." "And she's competing against Mrs. Patricia?" "Yes." Mrs. Patricia, who makes the potato salad that made Deacon Johnson cry at the church picnic last summer because it reminded him of his grandmother's cooking, who passed away 20 years ago. "That's the one." Jerome stood up, walked to the sink, washed his hands thoroughly, dried them on a towel, and then turned to face me with a kind of serious expression usually reserved for life or death situations. "Baby, I love you. I love you more than I love anything in this world. I love this baby we're about to have. I would do anything for you. Anything. But I am not getting in the middle of a potato salad war between two black women who both believe they're right. My grandfather fought in Vietnam. He told me stories about things he saw over there. Terrible things. Things that gave him nightmares for 40 years. And you know what he told me right before he died? He said nothing, and I mean nothing, he experienced in that war was as scary as the time he witnessed two church ladies fight over who made the best banana pudding at the Juneteenth celebration in 1987. He said men have died over less, and he didn't survive Vietnam just to get caught in the crossfire of a church lady food war. "Jerome, you're not helping." "I'm not trying to help. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to make sure I live long enough to meet our daughter. I'm trying to avoid becoming a casualty in a conflict I don't understand over food. I'm probably not even going to eat because I'll be too nervous." "You're being dramatic." "Am I? Am I really? Your aunt once held a grudge against Cousin Troy for 3 years because he said her sweet potato pie was dry. 3 years, Kendra. She wouldn't speak to him, wouldn't acknowledge him at family gatherings, treated him like he was invisible. The man moved to Atlanta, and I'm not entirely convinced the two events were unrelated." He had a point. Troy did move to Atlanta pretty quickly after the pie incident, and Aunt Lorraine did throw his Christmas card in the trash unopened for 3 consecutive years. "So what do you suggest I do?" Jerome sat back down and picked up his wing. "I suggest we pray. I suggest we pray hard. I suggest we pray like our lives depend on it because they might." The next 2 weeks were a blur of phone calls, text messages, and increasingly unhinged behavior from various family members who had somehow chosen sides in a conflict that nobody asked for and nobody wanted except Aunt Lorraine. Team Lorraine consisted of my Aunt Cheryl, who was loyal to her sister no matter what, even when what her sister was doing made absolutely no sense. Aunt Cheryl is the kind of sister who will help you hide a body without asking questions, ride or die to an almost concerning degree. Then there was my cousin Denise, who owed Aunt Lorraine money from some business venture that went south 2 years ago and couldn't afford to make her mad. Denise had borrowed $5,000 to start a hair salon. The salon lasted exactly 4 months before closing, and she'd been paying Aunt Lorraine back in $20 increments ever since. She couldn't afford to lose her spot on Aunt Lorraine's good side, so she was Team Lorraine whether she wanted to be or not. And finally, there was my Uncle Robert, who genuinely, authentically, without irony or sarcasm, liked the raisins in the potato salad. He'd eat multiple servings at every family gathering while everyone else stared at him like he was performing some kind of bizarre circus act. We'd all been quietly concerned about his judgment and possibly his taste buds for years, but he was a grown man living his truth. And who were we to judge? Except we were judging. We were all judging so hard. Team Patricia was basically everyone else who had functioning taste buds and had experienced the transcendent joy of her potato salad. This included most of the church, several neighbors, my entire friend group, Jerome's family who'd been introduced to it at our wedding, and even some random people who'd heard about it through the grapevine and were planning to show up to the baby shower specifically for the potato salad. Mrs. Patricia's potato salad had fans, like actual fans who discussed it, requested it, and planned their event attendance around it. But here's the thing about Black families, and this is important. Even when we're divided, we're united. Both teams showed up to help set up for the baby shower. Both teams brought gifts wrapped in beautiful paper with carefully chosen cards. Both teams hugged each other in the parking lot, complimented each other's outfits, asked about each other's kids, and made plans to get together for lunch. Because at the end of the day, we're family, and family shows up. Even when family is being absolutely ridiculous. Even when family is fighting about potato salad. Even when you're pretty sure someone is going to end up crying or getting their feelings hurt, or both. The baby shower was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock at the Blair Creek Community Center, a building that had hosted everything from wedding receptions to funeral repasts to city council meetings where people argued about whether to put a stop sign on Miller Street. It was a versatile space with good lighting, a decent sound system, and a kitchen that was bigger than some people's apartments. My best friend Deshawn had gone absolutely all out with the decorations. We're talking pink and gold everywhere you looked. Pink and gold balloons, pink and gold streamers, pink and gold table settings. A balloon arch that was so elaborate it probably required an engineering degree to construct and definitely cost more than my first car, a 1997 Honda Civic that died dramatically in a Walmart parking lot 3 years ago. The dessert table looked like something from a magazine spread. There were cupcakes arranged in tiers, a gorgeous pink and gold cake with fondant flowers, chocolate-covered strawberries, sugar cookies decorated with baby rattles and onesies, and some kind of fancy candy display that Deshawn had ordered from a specialty shop online. Deshawn is the kind of friend who doesn't do anything halfway. When I told him I was pregnant, he cried harder than Jerome did. He actually dropped to his knees in the middle of Target and sobbed with joy while other shoppers awkwardly navigated around us. When I asked him to plan the baby shower, he created a Pinterest board with 273 pins, a shared Google Doc with minute-by-minute timeline, and a group chat specifically for decoration coordination that had 42 members and generated approximately 300 messages a day. Girl, this is about to be the classiest, most beautiful, most Instagram-worthy baby shower Blair Creek has ever seen, Deshawn said as he adjusted a centerpiece for what had to be the 15th time. The centerpiece was perfect already, but Deshawn is a perfectionist who believes that good enough isn't good enough. We're talking elegance. We're talking sophistication. We're talking about an event that people will remember for years. People will tell their grandchildren about this baby shower. That's what I'm afraid of, I muttered, watching Aunt Lorraine's Buick pull into the parking lot with the kind of slow, deliberate energy that suggested she was preparing for battle. She got out of her silver Buick wearing a hot pink pantsuit that looked like it had been bedazzled by someone with a glitter gun, a dream, and absolutely no sense of restraint. There were rhinestones everywhere. On the lapels, on the pockets, down the sides of the pants. She was sparkling in the afternoon sun like a disco ball had been transformed into business casual attire. Her hair was pressed and curled to absolute perfection, not a single strand out of place. Her makeup was flawless foundation perfectly matched to her skin tone, eyebrows precisely drawn, lipstick in a shade of red that meant business. She was wearing her good shoes, the black ones with the chunky heel that she only brought out for important occasions. and she was carrying a bowl that was so large it required both hands and possibly divine intervention to carry without dropping. The potato salad bowl. It wasn't just any bowl. This was clearly new, probably purchased specifically for this occasion. Glass with a decorative pattern etched into the sides, a matching lid, a serving spoon that looked like it cost more than the bowl itself, and it was gift-wrapped. She had gift-wrapped her potato salad with shiny pink paper and a massive bow on top like it was a present for the guest of honor. "Lord, have mercy on us all," Deshaun whispered, his hand clutching the edge of the table for support. She gift-wrapped her potato salad. "That's not a good sign. That's not a sign, honey. That's a declaration of war. That's Pearl Harbor. That's the British marching on Lexington. That's somebody crossing the Rubicon. We are officially in crisis territory." Aunt Lorraine marched into the community center like a general entering enemy territory, her sensible heels clicking against the linoleum floor with the kind of purpose and rhythm that suggested she had rehearsed this entrance. She surveyed the room with narrowed eyes, taking in every detail of the decorations. She nodded approvingly at the balloon arch, studied the dessert table with a critical eye, examined the seating arrangements, and then her gaze landed on me. She smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, and made her way over. She hugged me with one arm while protecting her potato salad bowl with the other, holding it away from both of us like it was made of glass and filled with nitroglycerin. "Kendra, baby, you look beautiful, absolutely glowing. That's what they say about pregnant women, isn't it? That they glow? Well, you're glowing, sweetheart. Just glowing." "Thank you, Auntie. You look really nice, too." "This old thing," she gestured at her bedazzled pantsuit that was clearly brand new and probably cost more than my grocery budget for a month. "Just something I threw on. Didn't want to overdress, you know. Didn't want to take attention away from you on your special day." She was literally sparkling like a Christmas tree. But okay. "Is that your potato salad?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "Oh yes, I made it fresh this morning. Special recipe. Been working on perfecting it all week. I think this might be my best batch yet." That was concerning on multiple levels, primarily because it suggested there were different levels of quality to her potato salad, and we'd somehow been getting the subpar versions all these years. Aunt Lorraine made a beeline for the food table, her eyes scanning the setup with the intensity of a military strategist studying a battlefield map. And that's when she saw it. Mrs. Patricia's potato salad was already there, occupying prime real estate in the center of the table. It was sitting in a beautiful crystal bowl that caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows and made it sparkle like something from a fairy tale. The potato salad itself looked absolutely perfect. Golden potatoes mixed with perfectly diced eggs, bright green onions sprinkled on top like confetti, and a creamy dressing that looked smooth and inviting. The whole thing was a masterpiece of potato salad engineering. And next to it was a little card, a professionally printed card on nice cardstock that said, "Mrs. Patricia's famous potato salad," in elegant script with a little decorative border. Aunt Lorraine stopped walking so abruptly that I nearly bumped into her from behind. Her entire body went rigid, like someone had pressed a pause button. Her eyes narrowed to slits, her jaw clenched. Her grip on her own bowl tightened so much that I thought her knuckles might actually crack and we'd have to make an emergency trip to urgent care. "She put out a card," Aunt Lorraine said, her voice low and dangerous, vibrating with barely contained fury. "Auntie, it's just a little card. A card that says famous." She was still staring at it, not blinking, possibly not breathing. "She's claiming fame, public, printed fame, for potato salad." "Well, her potato salad is kind of famous, Auntie. People do talk about it a lot. Remember at church last month when Pastor Williams mentioned it during his sermon about..." That was my second mistake. My first mistake was inviting both of them. My second mistake was agreeing with the opposition in front of Aunt Lorraine. I should have known better. I did know better. But pregnancy brain is real. And 7 months pregnant, Kendra was not operating at full cognitive capacity. She turned to look at me, and I swear I saw my entire childhood flash before my eyes. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every family reunion, every moment of disappointment I'd ever caused her. This was the same look she gave my cousin Troy when he made the fatal error of suggesting her sweet potato pie was dry. Troy moved to Atlanta 3 weeks later, and we're still not entirely sure the two events were unrelated. He claims it was for a job opportunity, but the timing was suspicious. "Kendra Marie Williams," she said, using my full name, which is never a good sign. "Are you standing here, at your own baby shower, telling me that you think some woman I don't even know makes better potato salad than your own blood relative?" "I didn't say better, Auntie. I just said famous. Those are two different things. Something can be famous without being better. Like the Kardashians are famous, but famous means better in the food world. Famous means people talk about it. Famous means people request it specifically. Famous means people show up early to make sure they get some before it runs out." Do people show up early for my potato salad? They did, but not for the reasons she was imagining. People showed up early to avoid being forced to take some later when the options were limited. This felt like an elaborate trap, and I was smart enough not to step directly into it. "Your potato salad is unique, Auntie." The word hung in the air between us like a bad smell. "Unique," she repeated it slowly, testing each syllable like it might explode. Unique is what people say when they're trying to be polite about something being weird. Unique is code for, "I hate this, but I'm too well-mannered to say it directly." Unique is the word people use when they can't think of a single genuine compliment. "Auntie, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant..." But she was already moving, walking away from me toward the food table with the kind of determined stride usually reserved for people marching into battle. She placed her gift-wrapped bowl right next to Mrs. Patricia's crystal one, positioning it carefully, adjusting the angle like she was framing a photograph. Then she slowly, deliberately unwrapped it, like she was performing for an invisible audience. The bowl itself was impressive, I'll give her that. She'd garnished the top with paprika in an elaborate design that looked like it might be a sun, or maybe a flower, or possibly a warning symbol from an ancient civilization. It was hard to tell, but it was definitely intentional, and definitely took time. "We'll see whose potato salad is really famous after today," Aunt Lorraine announced to the room at large, her voice carrying over the soft background music Deshawn had carefully curated. Several early arriving guests stopped their conversations and looked over, sensing drama the way sharks sense blood in the water. Deshawn appeared at my elbow, his eyes wide with concern. "Is she okay? Define okay. Is she going to behave herself?" "Define behave." "Kendra, I'm serious. We have 40 people coming to this shower. I have a schedule. I have games planned. I have a timeline. We cannot have your aunt going rogue over potato salad. I'll talk to her." "You better do more than talk. You better perform an exorcism or something, because that woman has the energy of someone about to flip a table." Guests started arriving at exactly 2 o'clock, which was impressive given that Black people have a reputation for running on what my mama calls CP time, colored people time, which means showing up anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours late for any event. But apparently, the combination of my baby shower and Mrs. Patricia's legendary potato salad was enough motivation for people to arrive promptly. And for the first hour, everything was absolutely perfect. People oohed and ahed over the decorations, complimenting Deshawn on his impeccable taste and attention to detail. They played the baby shower games without complaint, guessing the baby food flavors, measuring my belly with ribbon, writing advice cards with their best parenting wisdom. They laughed at Deshawn's jokes, took beautiful photos in front of the balloon arch, and made me feel genuinely loved and supported. My mama was glowing with pride, walking around in her coral dress and matching shoes, introducing herself to people she'd known for 30 years like they were meeting for the first time. Jerome was being absolutely charming, shaking hands, making conversation, telling people how excited he was about becoming a father. My mother-in-law was quietly crying happy tears in the corner, overcome with emotion about her first grandchild. Everything was perfect, too perfect. I should have known it wouldn't last. Then it was time to eat. Deshaun had organized the food line with the precision of a military operation. He'd set up a table at one end of the room with plates, napkins, and utensils. Then a long buffet table with all the food arranged in strategic order, sandwiches first, then fruit, then the hot dishes, then sides, then desserts at the very end. The potato salads were positioned in the middle of the side section, both bowls prominently displayed with their respective serving spoons. The food line formed quickly because nobody had eaten lunch specifically to save room for this meal. People were hungry. People were ready. People were about to walk into a war zone without realizing they should have brought protective gear and possibly made peace with their maker. Mrs. Patricia had arrived about 30 minutes into the shower. Fashionably late, but not so late that it seemed rude. She was wearing a lovely yellow dress that reminded me of sunshine and happiness, completely inappropriate for the storm that was about to break. Her hair was styled in soft curls. Her makeup was subtle and elegant, and she had a smile that could light up a room and make you feel like everything was going to be okay even when you knew it definitely wasn't. She'd brought a beautiful gift wrapped in silver paper with a white bow, hugged me warmly, congratulated Jerome, and then positioned herself near the food table. Not hovering exactly, but definitely present. She stood there with her hands clasped in front of her, smiling at everyone, making small talk, radiating warmth and kindness. On the other side of the table, Aunt Lorraine had positioned herself like a guard at Buckingham Palace. Her posture was rigid, her eyes were sharp, her entire body language screamed territorial. She was tracking every single person who picked up a plate, watching their hands, monitoring their choices, keeping a mental scorecard of who took what. My cousin Jasmine was first in line because she'd strategically positioned herself near the food table before it was officially time to eat. She's 22, currently in college, studying something related to business that I don't fully understand, and she has absolutely no awareness of family politics or potato salad warfare. She's young. She's innocent. She's about to learn a harsh lesson about navigating family dynamics. She picked up her plate, moved down the line, took some fruit, grabbed a few finger sandwiches, and then approached the potato salad section. She looked at both bowls, considered her options for approximately half a second, and then scooped a generous portion of Mrs. Patricia's salad onto her plate. A really generous portion, like she was planning to eat nothing but potato salad for the rest of the day. Then she smiled politely and moved on without taking any of Aunt Lorraine's. Aunt Lorraine's left eye twitched. Just a tiny little twitch, barely noticeable unless you were watching closely. But I was watching closely because I could feel the tension building like pressure before a tornado. My Uncle Bernard was next in line. He's been married to my Aunt Cheryl Lorraine's sister for 32 years, and he's survived by developing highly sophisticated conflict avoidance strategies. He's a man who understands that sometimes survival requires sacrifice, compromise, and taking small portions of food you don't really want to eat. He picked up his plate, moved through the line efficiently, and when he reached the potato salads, he carefully, strategically, took a small amount from both bowls, equal portions, perfectly measured. He nodded respectfully at both women, his face neutral and pleasant, and then shuffled away as quickly as his 60-year-old knees would carry him. Smart man, survivor. We could all learn from Uncle Bernard. Then came Mrs. Henderson from the church. She's 75 years old, sweet as pie, has been a member of Greater Faith Baptist for 50 years, and has absolutely no idea she's about to become patient zero in a family incident that will be discussed for generations. She's wearing a purple dress with matching hat and purse, moving slowly because her hip has been bothering her lately. She picks up her plate with her slightly shaky hands, smiles at everyone, and starts moving down the line. She takes a little fruit, one finger sandwich, a small scoop of the spinach dip. She's being careful about portions because she's watching her blood sugar, and her doctor told her to be mindful of carbs. She approaches the potato salad section, surveys her options, and reaches for Mrs. Patricia's bowl. She takes a generous scoop, bigger than you'd expect, given how carefully she's been monitoring portions. Then she takes another scoop. Her plate is looking pretty full now, but she seems satisfied with her choices. "Mrs. Henderson." Aunt Lorraine's voice cut through the pleasant chatter of the room like a knife through butter, sharp and sudden. "You haven't tried my potato salad yet." The room didn't go completely silent, but there was definitely a shift in energy. People were still talking, but the volume dropped by about half. Conversations continued, but ears were tuned to this interaction the way animals tune into sounds that might indicate danger. Mrs. Henderson looked up, genuinely startled by the sudden address. "Oh, sweetheart, I've got plenty of food already." She gestured at her very full plate with a slightly embarrassed smile. "But you haven't tried my potato salad." "Well, I've got some from that nice bowl there." She gestured vaguely toward Mrs. Patricia's crystal bowl, not realizing she was pouring gasoline on a fire that hadn't quite started burning yet but was definitely smoking. "That's not mine. Mine is the one with the paprika design, the special one. The one I made fresh this morning, specifically for this shower." Mrs. Henderson looked at her plate, which was indeed very full. She looked at Aunt Lorraine's bowl. She looked back at her plate. You could see the calculations happening in her mind, the social mathematics of politeness versus self-preservation. "Oh, honey, I think I've got enough food here. Thank you so much, though. It looks real nice." The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. "Mrs. Henderson, I insist." Aunt Lorraine picked up the serving spoon from her bowl and held it out like it was a peace offering, or possibly a weapon, depending on your perspective. "Just one scoop, so you can compare, so you can taste the difference, so you can make an informed decision about which one you prefer." Mrs. Henderson, bless her sweet, elderly heart, was trying to be polite. She was raised in a generation where you don't refuse an elder's offer without a very good reason. But she was also 75 years old, with a full plate and a hip that was bothering her, and she just wanted to sit down and eat her lunch in peace. "Sweetheart, I really am full up here. My plate is about to overflow as it is. Maybe I can try some later if there's any left." "One scoop won't hurt you. Unless..." Aunt Lorraine's voice got sharper, taking on an edge that made several people stop their conversations entirely. "You've already decided you don't like mine without even trying it. Is that what's happening here? You're just assuming it's not good?" "Auntie," I started to intervene, moving toward the table with all the speed and grace my 7 months pregnant body could manage, which is to say, not much speed and even less grace. But Deshaun grabbed my arm and held me back. "Don't," he whispered urgently in my ear. "She's already in too deep. If you intervene now, she'll just shift her focus to you. Let it play out. Maybe it'll resolve itself." "Deshaun, this is not going to resolve itself." "A man can hope." Mrs. Patricia, who had been quietly observing this entire exchange with her pleasant smile still in place but her eyes showing growing concern, stepped forward with her hands held up in a peaceful gesture. "Lorraine, there's plenty of time for folks to try everything. The food isn't going anywhere. No need to pressure anyone. People should feel free to eat what they want when they want." And that, as they say, is when Aunt Lorraine snapped. "Pressure? Pressure? I'm not pressuring anyone, Patricia." Her voice rose sharply, carrying across the room and definitely cutting through every single conversation that was still limping along. "I'm simply offering my potato salad to someone who hasn't tried it yet. I'm being hospitable. I'm being generous. I'm doing what people do at gatherings they offer food. Is that a crime now? Is it illegal to offer food at a baby shower?" "Of course not, Mrs." Patricia said calmly, her voice still level and soothing like she was trying to talk someone down from a ledge. "I just think people should be able to choose what they want to eat without feeling obligated." "Oh, they're choosing all right. They're choosing your potato salad." Aunt Lorraine pointed at the crystal bowl like it was evidence in a trial, the one you made such a big production about, with your little fancy card announcing how famous it is, with your expensive crystal bowl like you're serving the Queen of England or presenting jewels at Buckingham Palace or something. with your strategic positioning in the center of the table like everything else should revolve around it. Lorraine, I didn't mean any disrespect by that. The card was Deshawn's idea. The bowl is just something I had at home, and I didn't position anything someone else set up the food table. Didn't you? Because it seems to me like you came in here trying to show me up, trying to make my potato salad look bad, trying to make me look foolish in front of my own family at my own niece's baby shower. Your potato salad does that on its own, someone muttered from the back of the room near the dessert table. The words carried further than the speaker probably intended, loud enough that everyone heard it, including and especially Aunt Lorraine. I'm 99% sure it was my cousin Troy, who'd driven up from Atlanta specifically for this event. Troy has never been good at reading a room or knowing when to keep his mouth shut. It's a character flaw that has gotten him in trouble repeatedly throughout his life. Aunt Lorraine spun around with the speed and precision of a trained dancer or possibly a ninja. Who said that? Who said that? Nobody answered. The room had reached that full, complete silence now. The kind where even the babies stopped making noise because they could sense something was about to go down. The kind of silence that happens right before something either gets resolved peacefully or explodes into chaos with no middle ground possible. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. My mama stood up from her seat at the guest of honor table, using her full mom voice, the one that has commanded respect and obedience for 63 years. Lorraine, that is enough. This is not the time or the place. No, Claudette, it is not enough. Aunt Lorraine was fully worked up now, her voice carrying emotion I'd never heard from her before. For 40 years, I've been making potato salad for this family. 40 years of cooking, 40 years of shopping for ingredients and spending my time and money and effort. And not once, not one single time has anyone said thank you. Not one time has anyone said, Lorraine, this is good. Lorraine, we appreciate this. Lorraine, thank you for contributing to our family gatherings. Her voice was shaking now, and I realized with growing shock that she was on the verge of tears. All I hear is silence when I put my bowl on the table. Deafening silence. All I see is people passing it by, like it's contaminated with something, like it's poisonous. Like touching it might give them some disease. I see the looks. I hear the whispers. I'm not stupid. I know people make jokes. I know people talk about the raisins. I know my potato salad is the punchline to jokes I'm not supposed to hear. A few people have the decency to look ashamed. Well, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being treated like my cooking doesn't matter. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter, like my contributions to this family are worthless. Like 40 years of showing up and bringing food means nothing because it's not the food you want me to bring. And right there, in the middle of my baby shower, surrounded by pink and gold decorations and uncomfortable guests who had come to celebrate a baby and were now witnessing a complete emotional breakdown, my Aunt Lorraine started to cry. Not pretty crying. Not the delicate dabbing of eyes with a tissue kind of crying. Real crying. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep inside, where you've been holding something in for so long that when it finally comes out, it brings 40 years of hurt and frustration with it. The kind of crying that's been building up for decades and just needed one last push to overflow. The room was frozen. Completely frozen. Nobody knew what to do or say. In Black families, there's usually a protocol for when someone starts crying at an event. Someone's supposed to hug them. Someone else is supposed to get them some tissue and maybe a glass of water. Another person is supposed to take them outside for air and a moment to compose themselves. But this was different. This was Aunt Lorraine, who nobody had ever seen cry about anything. Aunt Lorraine, who fought battles over everything and never backed down. Aunt Lorraine, who seemed to have no feelings about anything because she acted like she had no feelings about everything. Seeing her cry was like watching a fundamental law of physics break down, like watching gravity stop working or the sun rise in the west. My mama was the first one to move, breaking through the collective shock. She walked over to Aunt Lorraine and wrapped her arms around her sister. "Lorraine, baby, What's really going on here? This isn't about potato salad. What's really wrong? And that's when the whole story came tumbling out. The real story, underneath the surface conflict. The truth that nobody knew because nobody had asked. Turns out, Aunt Lorraine's potato salad recipe, the one everyone complained about, the one with the raisins that nobody understood, the one that seemed so weird and wrong, was my grandmother's recipe. Not just any recipe, but Grandma Rosa's Sunday recipe, the exact one she used to make every single Sunday after church without fail for 50 years. The raisins, the extra mayonnaise, the specific way the potatoes were cut, all of it, that was exactly how Grandma Rosa made it. She'd learned it from her mother, who'd learned it from her mother, passed down through generations of women in our family who probably never imagined it would one day become the center of a baby shower civil war. After Grandma Rosa died 5 years ago from a stroke that came suddenly and took her before we could say proper goodbyes, Aunt Lorraine had kept making the potato salad exactly the same way. Not because she thought it was the best recipe, not because she couldn't taste that it was different from what people liked now, but because it was the one thing, the one tangible thing that made her feel close to her mother. Every time she made that potato salad, she could hear Grandma Rosa's voice in her head. "A little more mayo, baby. Don't forget the paprika on top. The raisins are for sweetness, not too many. Just enough." Every time she mixed those ingredients, she was transported back to her childhood, standing on a stool in Grandma Rosa's kitchen, learning to cook, learning to be part of the family tradition. Every time someone rejected her potato salad, they were rejecting her mother's memory. Every time someone made a joke about the raisins, they were making fun of her grief. Every time someone chose a different potato salad over hers, she felt like they were choosing to forget Grandma Rosa, choosing to move on, choosing to let go of something that Aunt Lorraine wasn't ready to release. "I know it's not what people like now," Aunt Lorraine said, through her tears, her voice breaking into pieces that might never fully come back together. "I know it's old-fashioned. I know it's different. I know the flavors are wrong for modern taste. But it's Mama's recipe. It's all I have left of her Sunday dinners. It's all I have left of her voice in my head telling me to add just a little bit more of this or a little bit less of that. It's all I have left of feeling like her daughter, like I'm carrying on something important, like I'm keeping her alive in some small way." Her shoulders were shaking now, her carefully pressed hair getting messed up, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks in streaks. "And when y'all don't eat it, when y'all act like it's a joke, when y'all pass right by it like it's not even there, it feels like you're saying Mama's memory is a joke. Like she didn't matter, like what she taught me didn't matter, like 40 years of my life learning to be like her, trying to honor her, doesn't matter." The room was silent again, but this time it was a completely different kind of silence. Not the uncomfortable tension from before, but the heavy, profound silence of everyone simultaneously processing something they should have known, but didn't. The kind of silence where everyone is feeling guilty about every joke they've made, every time they've passed by that bowl with barely a glance, every snide comment muttered under their breath at family gatherings. The kind of silence where you realize you've been hurting someone for years without ever knowing it, and now you have to figure out what to do with that knowledge. Mrs. Patricia walked over slowly and stood next to Aunt Lorraine, her yellow dress a bright spot in the otherwise heavy moment. "Honey, I am so sorry. I had no idea. Nobody told me. If I had known, I would never have." "Why would you know?" Aunt Lorraine interrupted, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand and smearing her mascara even more. "I never told anybody. I just kept bringing the potato salad year after year, hoping someone would ask, hoping someone would wonder, hoping someone would understand without me having to explain, because explaining feels like admitting defeat, like admitting that Mama's recipe isn't good enough anymore, like admitting that time has moved on and left her behind." My Mama was crying now, too, tears rolling down her face and probably ruining her makeup that she'd spent an hour perfecting this morning. "Lorraine, you should have told us. You should have told us it was Mama's recipe. You should have told us what it meant to you. Would it have mattered? Aunt Lorraine looked at her sister with red, swollen eyes. Y'all still wouldn't have liked it. People's tastes change. Food trends change. What was good in 1970 isn't what people want in 2024. I know that. I'm not stupid. But I couldn't change the recipe because then it wouldn't be hers anymore. It would just be my potato salad, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted Mama's potato salad at our family gatherings because I wanted Mama at our family gatherings. The weight of those words settled over the room like a blanket. Aunt Cheryl had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Several of my older relatives were crying openly now. Even some people who didn't know Grandma Rosa were tearing up because you'd have to have a heart made of stone not to be moved by this level of grief and vulnerability. I felt something shift in my chest, like a key turning in a lock I didn't know existed. Here I was, 7 months pregnant, about to become a mother myself, and I was watching my aunt grieve for hers in the most public, painful way possible. I was seeing how love and loss get all tangled up together in the strangest ways. How sometimes people fight battles that seem completely ridiculous on the surface, because the real battle, the real pain, is too heavy to carry alone and too scary to admit out loud. I walked over to the food table as quickly as my pregnant body would allow, which is to say slowly and with some difficulty. I picked up a plate with both hands, and I took the biggest scoop of Aunt Lorraine's potato salad I could physically manage. Then I grabbed a fork, sat down right there on one of the folding chairs near the food table in front of everyone, and took a huge bite. It was exactly as I remembered from my childhood. Too much mayonnaise, making it heavy and wet, not enough seasoning, so the flavors were muted and bland. Raisins that absolutely, positively, did not belong in potato salad, and probably never would, no matter how many generations tried to make it work. But underneath all of that, underneath all the things that were wrong about it, there was something else. Something that tasted like Sunday afternoons in Grandma Rosa's kitchen. Something that tasted like being 5 years old and sneaking bites before dinner. Something that tasted like family. Even when family was complicated and messy, and sometimes made choices that didn't make sense to anyone else. It tastes like Grandma, I said. And I was surprised to find that I was crying too. Hormones and emotions and memories, all mixing together into something overwhelming. It tastes exactly like Grandma's house. Like Sunday dinners. Like being little and safe and loved. One by one, like something choreographed but completely spontaneous, other people started coming forward. They picked up plates, they took forks, they scooped potato salad from Aunt Lorraine's bowl. They sat down and ate it. Really ate it. Maybe some of them for the first time in years. Maybe some of them for the first time ever. And you could see it happening on their faces, the memories coming back, the recognition of something familiar buried underneath all the things we'd been too busy criticizing to notice. The taste of Sunday dinners from 20, 30, 40 years ago. The feeling of being young in Grandma Rosa's house, before life got complicated, before people died, before everything changed. My cousin Troy stood up from his seat in the back, his face serious and contrite. Aunt Lorraine, I owe you a major apology. I'm the one who said your pie was dry that time 5 years ago. That was wrong. I was completely wrong. I was being a jerk because I was trying to be funny, trying to get laughs, not thinking about how my words might hurt you. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, truly sorry. Aunt Cheryl was sobbing now, making her way to her sister with open arms. Lorraine, I'm so sorry. I should have known something was going on. I should have asked. I should have paid more attention. I'm your sister. I should have seen that you were hurting. Even Jerome, who'd been trying so hard to stay out of family drama, who declared himself neutral in the potato salad war, came forward with a plate. Miss Lorraine, I never got to meet Grandma Rosa. She passed away before Kendra and I started dating, but Kendra talks about her all the time. She says Grandma Rosa was the strongest, kindest, most faithful woman she ever knew. She says Grandma Rosa could make anyone feel welcome, could make any house feel like home. And if this was her recipe, if this is how she fed her family for 50 years, then it's an absolute honor to eat it. Thank you for keeping her memory alive. Mrs. Patricia, who'd been standing quietly through all of this, watching everything unfold, pulled up a chair next to Aunt Lorraine and sat down close enough that their knees were touching. Can I tell you something? My potato salad recipe was my grandmother's too. My grandmother Beatrice, on my daddy's side. She taught me when I was 8 years old in her tiny kitchen in South Carolina, and I've been making it the exact same way ever since. Every single time. No changes, no updates. I get why you hold on to that recipe like your life depends on it. I get why it matters so much. I get why changing even one ingredient feels like betrayal. But people love yours, Aunt Lorraine said quietly, her voice small and broken. People request yours. People talk about yours like it's something special. People love mine now. But when I first started making it for church functions 20 years ago, folks used to complain. They said it was too tangy, too much mustard, too much vinegar, too different from what they were used to. The pickle juice really threw people off. It took years before people came around to it. And you know what? If they never had, if they'd kept rejecting it forever, I would have kept making it anyway because it wasn't about them. It was about her. It was about keeping my grandmother alive in the only way I knew how. Aunt Lorraine looked at Mrs. Patricia like she was seeing her for the first time as a real person instead of as competition. Really? People didn't like it at first? Really, honey. These recipes are love letters. They're how we keep our people alive after they're gone. They're how we pass down more than just ingredients and measurements. We pass down memories and values and the feeling of being loved. Anyone who doesn't understand that, anyone who can't respect that, doesn't deserve a seat at the table. My mama brought over a box of tissues, not the cheap ones, but the nice ones with lotion that we only break out for special occasions, and Aunt Lorraine took several, dabbing at her eyes and trying to salvage what was left of her makeup. Her shoulders were less tight than they'd been in years. Maybe less tight than they'd been since Grandma Rosa died, like some burden she'd been carrying had finally been set down. I'm sorry I made such a scene at your baby shower, Kendra, Aunt Lorraine said, turning to look at me with red, puffy eyes that were somehow also filled with relief. This was supposed to be about you and the baby. This was supposed to be a celebration of your new life starting. And I ruined it with my drama and my feelings and my inability to handle my grief like a normal person. I stood up, which took some effort with my pregnant belly, walked over, and sat down next to her. Auntie, it's okay. It's more than okay. No, it's not. I let my feelings get in the way of celebrating you. That's not right. That's selfish. I took her hand, noticing how small it seemed now, how fragile, when I'd always thought of her as this large, imposing presence. Auntie, do you know what I want for this baby? Do you know what I hope for? What, honey? I want her to know her family, all of them, including the aunties who fight over potato salad because they love their mamas so much they can't let go. I want her to understand that sometimes people fight because they hurt, not because they're mean. I want her to learn that family is messy and complicated, and sometimes makes absolutely no sense at all. But at the end of the day, at the end of everything, we show up for each other, even when showing up is hard, even when showing up means admitting we were wrong, even when showing up means being vulnerable in ways that scare us. Aunt Lorraine squeezed my hand so tight it almost hurt. You're having a girl? You said her. I smiled, realizing I'd let the secret slip in all the emotion. Jerome and I had found out 2 weeks ago and had been keeping it quiet, wanting to do a big reveal later. But this moment felt right for sharing. Yeah, we just found out. We haven't told anyone yet. What are you naming her? I looked at Jerome across the room, and he nodded, giving me permission to share the name we'd chosen together, after hours of discussion and several disagreements about spellings and middle names. Rosa. We're naming her Rosa after Grandma. Aunt Lorraine completely broke down again, but this time it was different. This time it wasn't grief or frustration, or anger. This time it was relief and joy and sadness, all mixed together in a way that only family can understand. She hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack, her whole body shaking with sobs that were both happy and sad at the same time. "Mama would be so proud of you," she whispered against my shoulder, her words muffled but clear enough to hear. "So incredibly proud." "She'd be proud of you too, Auntie, for keeping her memory alive all these years, for loving her enough to defend her recipe even when it made you look difficult, for caring so much about honoring her, that you were willing to be the villain in everyone's story." The party shifted after that. The whole energy changed. It became less about perfection and coordination and staying on Deshawn's carefully planned schedule. It became more about connection and truth, and the kind of messy realness that makes moments memorable. People told stories about Grandma Rosa. They laughed about her stubborn streak, which clearly ran in the family like a genetic condition that skipped no one. They remembered her kindness, her strength, her way of making everyone feel welcome at her table, even when there wasn't enough food to go around, even when money was tight and times were hard. They recalled her faith, her prayers, her ability to find something to praise God for even on the worst days. Uncle Robert stood up and told the story about the time Grandma Rosa made Thanksgiving dinner for 30 people in a kitchen the size of a closet with only 2 working burners on the stove. Aunt Cheryl remembered how Grandma Rosa used to sing while she cooked, old hymns and gospel songs that filled the house with music. My mama talked about learning to make biscuits standing on a stool next to Grandma Rosa's counter, learning that the secret was cold butter and gentle hands. Deshawn brought out the cake, a beautiful 3-tier creation with pink and gold fondant flowers that probably cost more than my first month's rent, and we sang, and I opened presents, and everything happened more or less the way it was supposed to happen. But there was something different in the air now, something softer and more real, something that felt less like a performed event and more like genuine family connection. The presents were wonderful clothes and blankets and diapers and all the things you need for a baby. But the real gift was this moment of honesty, this tearing down of walls that had been up for years, this permission for everyone to be real and vulnerable and imperfect. Later, after most people had left and we were cleaning up, I found Mrs. Patricia and Aunt Lorraine standing at the food table together, packing up the leftover potato salad. Both bowls were nearly empty, which was remarkable given that Aunt Lorraine's bowl had sat untouched at family gatherings for years. "You know, Mrs." Patricia was saying as she carefully spooned the last bit of her potato salad into a container, "we should do a cooking day sometime. You, me, and some of the other ladies from church who love to cook. We could share recipes, tell stories about where they came from, talk about the people who taught us. Make it a regular thing, maybe once a month. I'd like that," Aunt Lorraine said, and she sounded like she actually meant it. "I'd like that a lot." "And maybe," Mrs. Patricia added carefully, treading lightly on what was obviously still tender ground, "you could teach me about your grandmother's recipe, the history of it, why she made it that way, what each ingredient meant to her. I'd really love to learn." Aunt Lorraine looked genuinely surprised. "You'd really want to know? You'd actually care about some old recipe from 50 years ago that nobody likes?" "Honey, every recipe has a story, and every story deserves to be told and heard and honored. That's what cooking is really about, not just the taste, but the love and memory and tradition baked into every dish. Your grandmother's story matters, your story matters, and I'd be honored if you'd share it with me." They exchanged phone numbers right there, making plans, laughing about something I couldn't quite hear, and I realized that this whole disaster had actually turned into something beautiful and unexpected. It had torn down walls that had been up for so long we'd forgotten they were there. It had opened up conversations that desperately needed to happen, but nobody knew how to start. It had reminded all of us what really mattered: not being right, not winning competitions, not having the best of anything, but being connected, being honest, being family in all its complicated glory. My mama came over and put her arm around my shoulders, careful not to squeeze too tight given my pregnant state. "How are you feeling, baby girl?" "Tired, emotional, overwhelmed, but good. Really good, actually. Your grandmother would have loved all this drama, you know. She lived for family chaos. She said boring families weren't really families at all." I laughed, remembering Grandma Rosa's philosophy on life. "I know. She always said, if everyone was getting along too well, somebody wasn't being honest." "But Mama, why didn't anyone tell Aunt Lorraine that people knew it was Grandma's recipe? Why didn't anyone acknowledge that?" My mama sighed, looking older suddenly, the weight of regret showing on her face. "Because we didn't know she needed to hear it, baby. Because we're all so busy with our own lives and our own problems that we forget to pay attention to the people right in front of us. Sometimes people don't tell you what they need because they don't know how to ask. Sometimes they show you through strange behaviors and odd battles, and you have to pay attention enough to see it. We failed at that. We failed at seeing Lorraine's pain because we were too busy being annoyed by her behavior." Jerome walked over with a plate in his hand, looking pleased with himself. "Baby, I'm taking some of both potato salads home, for research purposes." "Research?" "Yeah, scientific research, taste comparison, historical documentation." He was trying to be serious, but couldn't quite pull it off. "Also because I'm hungry, and they're both actually pretty good once you understand what you're eating and why it matters." "That's very diplomatic of you." "I'm a diplomatic man, but seriously, I figure when little Rosa gets older, we should teach her both recipes, the one that's famous and the one that's family. The one everyone loves, and the one that carries memory. Let her decide what she wants to carry forward. Let her understand that both matter for different reasons." I kissed him right there in the middle of the community center, not caring who saw, not caring that I was sweaty from pregnancy and stress and emotional exhaustion. "That's perfect. You're perfect. I have my moments. You have many moments." The next day, Sunday morning, I was sitting on my couch with swollen feet elevated, eating cereal from the box like a normal person definitely doesn't do, when my phone started blowing up with the family group chat. But this time it was completely different from the usual chaos. "Last night was beautiful. Thank you, Kendra, for giving us space to be real with each other, for letting us see that it's okay to be vulnerable. Cousin Denise, I'm still crying about Grandma Rosa. We need to share more stories about her. We need to make sure the younger generation knows who she was. Uncle Robert, I still like the raisins. I will die on this hill. They add a sweetness that balances the savory. Fight me." Troy from Atlanta, "Uncle Robert, please seek professional help. Maybe therapy. Maybe an exorcism. I'm not sure which would be more effective. Can we all just acknowledge that yesterday was the most intense baby shower in human history? I came for cake and left with trauma and life lessons. And then, from Aunt Lorraine, I love you all. Even when you don't eat my potato salad, but especially when you do. Thank you for seeing me yesterday. Thank you for letting me fall apart without judgment. Thank you for being family even when I make it hard." The responses came in fast heart emojis, crying emojis, praying hands emojis, people sharing their own memories of Grandma Rosa and other family members who'd passed on. The group chat that used to be a source of stress and drama and constant notification anxiety had become something else. It had become a space where people felt safe to be vulnerable, to share, to love each other out loud with all the messiness that entails. 3 weeks later, I was sitting on my couch at 8 in the morning, rubbing my growing belly that seemed to expand daily, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was coming. My phone rang. Caller ID showed it was Aunt Lorraine, which was unusual because she typically texted, claiming that phone calls were for emergencies and serious business only. "Hey, Auntie, everything okay?" "Hey, baby girl, everything's wonderful. How are you feeling? How's my little Rosa doing in there?" Big, getting bigger every day. Ready for her to come out already so I can see my feet again. Aunt Lorraine laughed. A genuine sound of joy that I'd heard more in the past few weeks than in the previous few years. It won't be long now. 2 more months and she'll be here. Listen, I wanted to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Okay, what's up? I've been thinking a lot about what you said at the shower, about little Rosa learning both recipes, about carrying forward traditions but also being allowed to make them her own. And I thought maybe, well, I talked to Mrs. Patricia about this, and she agreed it was a good idea. Maybe I could teach her Grandma's original recipe, but I could also help her make a new version. One that keeps the love and the memory and the tradition, but maybe updates some things for her generation, makes it more relevant, makes it something she'd actually want to eat, instead of something she's obligated to eat. I sat up straighter, surprised by this admission. Auntie, are you saying you'd be willing to change Grandma's recipe? There was a long pause on the other end, and I could hear her breathing, thinking, working through something difficult. I think Mama would want it to evolve. She was never one to stay stuck in the past. She always said cooking is about making people happy, not about being right. She said food should bring people together, not drive them apart. So maybe I've been so focused on being right, on preserving everything exactly as it was, that I forgot about the happiness part. I forgot about the bringing people together part. Auntie, I love that. I love that so much. That's so wise. Good. Because I already talked to Mrs. Patricia, and we're working on a hybrid recipe together. We're calling it Rosa's Legacy. It's got elements from both our grandmothers, the best of old traditions, mixed with new flavors. Her pickle juice, my paprika, her egg technique, my potato cutting method, and no raisins. No raisins? Well, maybe just a few. For tradition's sake, for memory. But they're optional. People can add them if they want that connection to history, or they can leave them out if they want something more modern. Choice. Flexibility. Evolution while still honoring the past. I laughed until my pregnant belly hurt. You're amazing, Auntie. You're genuinely amazing. Thank you for being willing to change, to grow. To see that honoring someone's memory doesn't mean freezing everything in time. Thank you for teaching me that, baby. Thank you for being patient with your difficult aunt who can't control her emotions about potato salad. After we hung up, I thought about the lesson in all of this, about how sometimes the things we fight about aren't really the things we're fighting about, how sometimes people's strangest behaviors are just their way of holding on to love in the only way they know how. How sometimes what looks like a battle over something trivial is really just grief wearing a different outfit, disguised as stubbornness or pride or anger, because those emotions feel safer than vulnerability. I thought about my daughter, Rosa, who would arrive in 2 months, and all the stories she'd hear about her great-grandmother, the strong woman who fed her family even when times were impossibly hard, the stubborn woman who never backed down from what she believed was right. The loving woman who taught her daughter a recipe and never imagined it would become a 40-year legacy of connection, conflict, and ultimately healing. And I thought about Aunt Lorraine, who spent 40 years making potato salad that nobody wanted because it was the only way she knew how to say, "I miss my mama. I love my mama. My mama mattered, and I need you all to know that." Who fought battles at family gatherings because fighting felt safer than crying? Who built walls around her grief because the alternative was drowning in it? The moral of this story isn't about potato salad, even though that's where we started and what caused all the drama. It's about seeing people, really seeing them beyond their difficult behaviors, looking past the actions that make us crazy or annoyed, and asking ourselves what pain they might be protecting, what love they might be expressing in the only language they know how to speak. It's about understanding that family is complicated because people are complicated. And people are complicated because love and loss and memory get all tangled up in ways that don't make sense to anyone outside that specific person's experience. That sometimes the people who drive us the most insane, who create the most drama, who seem the most unreasonable, are the ones carrying the heaviest burdens we can't see. It's about forgiveness, not the quick, easy kind that doesn't cost you anything and changes nothing. Not the performative kind where you say the words but don't mean them, but the deep, hard kind that requires you to put down your own hurt for a moment and pick up someone else's. The kind that says, I see you, I hear you, I understand now why you've been difficult, and even though you've annoyed me and frustrated me and made life harder, I forgive you because I understand the pain underneath the behavior. And it's about legacy, what we choose to pass down and how we choose to pass it down. About understanding that recipes are more than just ingredients and measurements. They're time machines and memory boxes and love letters from people who are no longer here to write new ones. They're tangible connections to people we've lost, to times we can never return to versions of ourselves that no longer exist. It's about recognizing that the smallest traditions can carry the biggest meanings, that a bowl of potato salad can be a memorial service, a love letter, a battlefield, and a peace treaty all at once. That food isn't just sustenance, it's memory, it's culture, it's identity. It's the physical manifestation of love and care and the desire to nurture. My Aunt Lorraine didn't start a fight at my baby shower over potato salad. Not really. She started a conversation about grief, memory, change, and what we carry forward when we lose the people we love most. She opened a door that had been sealed shut for 5 years, and on the other side was healing that our whole family needed, but didn't know how to ask for. She gave us permission to be vulnerable, to admit that we're all just trying to hold on to love in whatever ways we can, even when those ways don't make sense to anyone else. When little Rosa is old enough to understand, I'm going to tell her this whole story. I'm not going to clean it up or make it prettier. I'm going to tell her about the fighting and the crying and the potato salad that tasted wrong but meant everything. I'm going to teach her both recipes, the original that her great-great-grandmother Rosa made, and the hybrid that her great-aunt Lorraine and Mrs. Patricia created together. I'm going to explain that her great-grandmother Rosa was a woman worth remembering, worth honoring, worth keeping alive through stories and recipes and traditions. I'm going to tell her that her great-aunt Lorraine loved Grandma Rosa so much that she spent 40 years defending a recipe nobody else understood or appreciated, that she was willing to be seen as difficult, stubborn, and unreasonable rather than admit how much she was hurting, that she fought battles over potato salad because the real battle, the one against grief and loss and the passage of time, felt too big to fight directly. I'm going to tell her that family is messy, that people fight over the strangest things, that sometimes love looks like criticism, and pain looks like anger, and grief looks like stubbornness. But underneath it all, if you dig deep enough, if you ask the right questions, if you give people the grace to be human and complicated and imperfect, you'll find the truth, and the truth is always worth fighting for, even if you have to start with potato salad. Jerome came home that evening with Chinese takeout because I was too pregnant and too tired to even think about cooking, and honestly, I'd been eating cereal for 3 meals a day, which probably wasn't the healthiest choice, but was definitely the most convenient. We sat on the couch together, eating lo mein and sweet and sour chicken straight from the containers like civilized adults definitely don't do, scrolling through the baby shower photos on my phone. You know what's wild? Jerome said, pausing with a piece of chicken halfway to his mouth. What? A month ago, if someone had told me that the most meaningful, emotionally intense, life-changing moment at our baby shower would involve your aunt having a complete breakdown over potato salad, I would have thought they were making up stories for entertainment. I would have thought they were being dramatic for no reason. Life is weird like that. Truth is stranger than fiction. Life is beautiful like that. He put his hand on my belly, feeling Rosa kick her regular evening kicks that had become as predictable as clockwork. This little girl is going to have the most interesting family stories, the most complex, layered, meaningful family stories. She really is. She's going to grow up hearing about the Great Potato Salad War of 2024. And when she asks why Thanksgiving dinner has 3 different potato salads on the table because you know it will, we're going to tell her the whole truth, every embarrassing detail, Every single one, no censoring. That's how you honor history. You tell it true. I leaned back against him, feeling grateful for this man who'd married into my chaotic family and loved them anyway, who understood that sometimes the craziness is where the beauty lives. Who knew that the best stories always start with someone doing something that doesn't make sense until you know the whole truth? Who could see the love underneath the dysfunction and choose to be part of it rather than running away, screaming? My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Lorraine. It was a photo of her in her kitchen, wearing her favorite apron, the one that said Queen of the Kitchen in glittery letters, and holding up a bowl. The text said, "Practice batch of Rosa's legacy. Testing it on your uncle and the church bingo group tomorrow. We'll report back with results. Wish me luck." 5 minutes later, another text. "Update. Your uncle just tried it and said it needs more raisins, but I'm ignoring him because he's wrong and has been wrong about this for 30 years. Another text 2 minutes after that. "The secret is balance. Mrs. Patricia was right. You can honor tradition while also making room for change." Who knew? I showed Jerome the texts, and we laughed until we couldn't breathe, until our sides hurt, until tears were running down our faces. This was family. This was love. This was what it meant to show up for each other, even when showing up was messy and complicated and involved potato salad drama at baby showers that was supposed to be elegant and refined. And honestly, I wouldn't change a single thing. Well, maybe the part where Aunt Lorraine made poor Mrs. Henderson cry. That was a little much, a little too intense even by our family's dramatic standards. But everything else? Pure gold. Perfect in its imperfection. The baby kicked again. Harder this time. Like she was weighing in on the conversation. Like she was agreeing with me. Like she already knew she was being born into a family that was loud and dramatic and sometimes dysfunctional, but absolutely, completely, undeniably full of love in all its weird, wonderful, complicated forms. "Welcome to the family, Rosa," I whispered to my belly, patting the spot where her tiny foot or elbow or knee was pushing against my skin. "It's going to be one hell of a ride, but I promise you'll never be bored, and you'll always be loved. And you'll always have potato salad at family gatherings, maybe too much potato salad, actually, definitely too much potato salad. But that's okay. That's family." Jerome kissed the top of my head. Best baby shower ever. It was a disaster. It was perfect, real, honest, meaningful. Everything those fancy magazine baby showers, with their perfect decorations and coordinated color schemes and carefully curated guest lists, could never be. This was real life, real family, real love. And you know what? He was absolutely right. 2 months later, when baby Rosa was born at exactly 3.47 inches the morning after 14 hours of labor that I will never ever talk about in detail because some things are too traumatic to relive, the first people at the hospital were my mama and Aunt Lorraine. Aunt Lorraine walked into that hospital room carrying a small cooler, and inside was a container of Rosa's legacy potato salad that she and Mrs. Patricia had made together specifically for this moment. They'd made it the night before, she said, knowing the baby would come soon, wanting to have it ready. "For your first meal as a mother," she said, tears already streaming down her face as she looked at her grandniece for the first time. "Made with love from 4 generations of women. From your grandmother Rosa, from me, from Mrs. Patricia, and now for baby Rosa. The legacy continues." And we sat there in that hospital room, me exhausted and sore, Jerome proud and terrified, my mama crying happy tears, and Aunt Lorraine holding her grandniece, and we ate potato salad at 4 in the morning while the sun started to rise outside the window. It was perfect. It was family. It was exactly how it was supposed to be. Like this video if it touched something in you. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about what it means to be human, to be family, and to choose love even when it's complicated. I'll see you next time.